Weirdest thing that ever happened to you at work? I'd ask Senator Durbin this, but we don't have time in this segment for him to answer. He's seen a lot in all these years in Congress, and it's not like business. Not like business is slow now. And good morning to you, Senator.
Good morning to you.
Nice to have you on, as always. I want to ask you about prescription drug pricing and a bunch of other stuff you're working on. But as chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, it's a big week with judicial confirmations. You're gonna try and clear 200 people this week?
We will have a total of 200 under the Biden administration over the last 4 years. Still have a few months to go. I think it's a pretty good record. At one point for 2 years, we had a Senate with a tie vote, and we still managed to have almost 100 judges approved in that 2-year period. Another 100 have been approved in these remaining 2 years, and we have a few months left.
Have you seen in your time in Congress a time where someone's clearly qualified or clearly not qualified, and the other side, and it goes both ways, obviously, but the other side just says no?
Yes.
Is it worse now than before or not?
Well, it's hard to say. I guess it probably is worse than it's been. It wasn't that long ago that you had judicial nominees who were proposed by a president, and they were accepted by a voice vote. Now it's a death-defying act, a procedural jump in the dark to get him even up for consideration in the Senate, and you count every vote every time. So it's much different than it was before.
Now, we also know in this hyper-partisan, doesn't begin to describe it, era we live in, where honor and truth are just choices, not the go-tos, you've got this bizarre stuff going on at the Supreme Court, including the Justice Alito story with an upside-down flag. And obviously, we've seen this before with Clarence Thomas and his wife and the things that they're accused of. As chair, you could take action here by putting together. Do we really need another committee, and what would that do?
Listen, I want to be very blunt and honest with you. What's going on at the court is terrible. It's hurting that institution. They don't own an army. They don't have a ton of money. They have their integrity and reputation to base their decisions on, and they make some of the most important decisions in the lives of every single American. What's going on over there is terrible. Clarence Thomas example. Year after year, vacation after vacation, private jets, yachts, you name it. All this stuff unreported, discovered by the press, disclosed. And he basically says it's none of our business. Alito now with this situation where they have a photo with a flagpole in his yard and the flag flying upside down 2 weeks after the insurrectionist mob hit the Capitol. And you say to yourself, there are strict rules for employees of the court not even to put bumper stickers on their cars. And here someone in his family, or he personally, decides to display this flag upside down, which was a symbol of the election is stolen movement, the big lie of Donald Trump. I just think he ought to have the dignity and honor to step aside and say, I shouldn't sit on these cases to decide whether or not President Trump is immune from prosecution. I think he ought to recuse himself. He probably won't. The alternative is to impeach him, and I don't think that's going to happen. I'm not pushing for that.
Yeah, and to hold another hearing, frankly, isn't going to move the needle, is it?
It's not. We've got a bill, an ethical bill, that is pending on the floor of the Senate. I talked to Schumer about it yesterday. He said, I got a long list of people who want to call bills. That's one I'd like to call. Whether we'll be able to, I don't know. But the bottom line is the highest court in the land, Supreme Court, should not have the lowest standard of ethics. Our federal judges in Chicago live by a stricter code of ethics than the Supreme Court justices.
I don't think in a time where we weren't taught civics in school like they were when you and I were kids, I don't think people begin to understand the workings of the Supreme Court. I know I don't. Is there someone in charge over the other 8, or do they operate as 9 individuals?
Well, Chief Justice Roberts has the title, but he operates by consensus on everything. And I don't think he would step out. For instance, when the embarrassing disclosures came out about Thomas, he made a point of not saying anything particular about the individual. He's trying to keep everybody moving in the right direction. But unfortunately, there's several members of the court that just don't want to play by the rules and, frankly, don't even want the rules. They believe they're above it. When you get a lifetime appointment to the highest court in the land,
it's ridiculous.
That, I think, is a corruption of our democracy.
Yeah, a complete credibility issue at a time where people don't believe in government to begin with. Jane wanted to bring up a couple of things here. Did you want to talk about prescription drugs?
You know what, Steve? You're reading my mind. Senator, what's happening with the hearing on prescription prices? And will you also discuss the pharmaceutical competition and increasing that?
Well, I can tell you this. Average American sees 9 ads on television every day for drugs. That's the average. And you can bet there's some who see an awful lot more. You know the lady who dances around on the Jardiance commercial?
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to ask the question of the company that makes Jardiance. Why does in the United States it cost $700 a month to take your drug and $150 a month in Canada? Exactly the same drug. And I could go through a long list of examples just like that, where the Europeans and the Canadians have said, we're not going to pay these stinking prices. And we in the United States appear to be helpless to even protect ourselves. Go to Blue Cross Blue Shield, located there in Chicago, big skyscraper down by the lake, and ask them, what's the number one driver of health insurance premiums in the United States? Why are we paying so damn much each month for health insurance? And they'll say, the cost of prescription drugs. So the hearing is going to ask some basic questions. What are we doing? What can we do to finally bring this under control? Bottom line is, the American taxpayers are paying for the basic research to create these new drugs. 99% of the drugs in the last 20 years started off with NIH taxpayer-funded research that leads to good successes, and we all want them in finding new cures in that. But the prices they're charging at this point are ridiculous and obscene.
Senator, will the hearing also touch on the role of pharmaceutical research being done as well by the National Institutes of Health?
Yes, of course it will, and it should. I want these companies to have enough profit to make a profit and to stay in business, number one. And number two, to do the research for the new drugs, innovation. As I said, the NIH basic research helps them all. But most of these companies are spending almost twice as much on advertising as they are on research. Why? It's more profitable than finding a new drug. And that's a question we're going to be asking too.
Well, and Jardiance dance lessons. You know, I mean, it gets expensive. We'll let you go on this. There are 3 pieces of legislation that are moving forward with your urging, and they support our first responders, and they're important. The Honoring Our Fallen Heroes Act, the Retired Law Enforcement Officers Continuing Service Act, and reauthorizing support and treatment officers in crisis, dealing with mental health, officers' suicide, grants to bring retired officers back to fill the gaps like we have at the Chicago Police Department where we don't have enough cops, and also benefits for these cops as well. Anybody fighting you on these?
No, thank goodness they're bipartisan. Let me tell you, Steve, I have off-the-record meetings with the Chicago Police Department and other police departments around the state and hear from these women and men about what life is like on the streets, and it ain't easy. They're risking their lives every damn day for us. Do they make mistakes? Yes, they do. We all do. But the bottom line is when you dial 911, you want somebody competent and trained responding. Our bills are designed to help them deal with some realities. Mental illness is something that they face. Who wouldn't? A job that's stressful. We want to make sure that they are treated and they don't succumb to temptations to take their own lives, which happens way too often. No, the bottom line is they can do a better job. We all can. But we need them, and I want to salute them in National Police Week.
All right. I hope that gets done very soon, and we appreciate your time as always. Thank you, Senator.
Thanks, Jane. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Senator.
Have a good day.
Senator Dick Durbin, who sounds rightfully tired.
I thought he sounded all right.
Well, I mean, he just sounded like he just sounded like at some point he's just going to go, you know what I want to talk about? That's BS.